The planet was silent now, a graveyard of ash and ruin. Where once Earth's cities had glittered like stars in their own right, there was now only rubble stretching endlessly toward the horizon. The alien invaders had made sure of that. They hadn't just conquered Earth, they had broken it. But deep beneath the crumbling surface, in the shadowed remnants of what had once been a great city, something stirred. Captain Alina Voss stood in the cold, metallic chamber of an ancient facility, hidden far below the surface. Her breath formed small clouds in the frigid air, and her gloved hand trembled slightly as it hovered over the console before her. She was surrounded by a skeleton crew of engineers and scientists, each one staring at the dormant behemoth encased in the cavernous hangar before them. The warship was massive, nearly half a kilometer long, its hull a dull crimson that seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light. Alien symbols etched into the metal glowed faintly, like veins of blood running through its core. No one knew where it had come from or how it had been hidden for so long. The only certainty was that it wasn't human. "Are we sure this thing won't kill us the moment we turn it on?" asked Lieutenant Merrick, her second in command. His voice was strained, but he managed to keep his tone steady. "It doesn't matter if it does," Alina replied, her voice like steel. "We're out of options. They think they've finished us. But this is how we show them they were wrong." The room fell silent. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, a reminder of how much they had lost. Families, homes, entire nations. The invaders hadn't been content with conquest. They had sought to erase humanity from existence. But the few who had survived had clung to one thing: vengeance. Alina pressed her palm against the console, and the ancient symbols flared to life, bathing the chamber in an eerie red glow. The warship groaned, its systems beginning to hum as if awakening from a long slumber. The engineers scrambled to decipher the alien readings flashing across their monitors, their voices overlapping in tense urgency. "It's responding," said one of the scientists, her tone equal parts awe and fear. "Power levels are rising. This thing is alive." Alina stared at the warship, her chest tight with a mixture of dread and anticipation. For decades, humanity had hidden in the shadows, scattered across the stars, licking their wounds. But this ship, this weapon, was their chance to strike back. She could almost see the faces of the invaders who had laughed as Earth burned. She imagined their terror when they realized the prey they had hunted had become the predator. A low, resonant thrum filled the chamber as the warship's systems roared to life. The ground beneath them trembled, and for a moment, Alina felt as though the Earth itself was shaking off the weight of its despair. One of the monitors began to flash wildly. "It's powering up its weapon systems," Merrick said, his voice rising. "Captain, this thing is waking up faster than we can control it." Alina's eyes narrowed. "Let it." The warship's crimson hull brightened, and a voice, alien yet oddly familiar, echoed through the chamber. "Who dares awaken me?" The team froze. Alina stepped forward, her jaw set, her voice unyielding. "We are the last of humanity, and we're here to take back what's ours." The warship's lights flared brilliantly, casting long shadows against the walls. The alien symbols rearranged themselves into something legible, spelling out a single message: "Then let the stars burn." The ground above the ancient hangar shuddered as the crimson warship lifted from its long-forgotten cradle. Dust and debris cascaded down like a funeral shroud, marking the beginning of Earth's rebirth, or its final descent into oblivion. Captain Alina Voss stood on the bridge of the vessel, her hands gripping the command console as the alien ship responded to her touch with an unsettlingly organic hum. The bridge was a marvel of alien engineering. The walls glowed faintly with pulsating veins of light, as if the ship itself was alive. The controls seemed to shift under her hands, adapting to her movements as though it was learning her. Alina's crew, though visibly uneasy, worked diligently at their stations, translating the ship's cryptic systems and deciphering its interface. "Status report," Alina barked, her voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. Lieutenant Merrick, seated at what appeared to be the tactical station, glanced up with wide eyes. "Weapon systems are online, Captain. And they're not like anything we've ever seen. High-yield plasma cannons, particle destabilizers, and—" He hesitated, swallowing hard. "Something labeled as a Starbreaker." The name hung heavy in the air, its implication sending a chill through the crew. "Starbreaker," Elena repeated, her brow furrowed. "What does it do?" Merrick shook his head. "No idea. But if the name's literal—" Elena's jaw tightened. This ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a harbinger of destruction on a galactic scale. "Captain," one of the engineers called from a console near the rear of the bridge, "we've detected incoming signals. Alien vessels, 3 ships, inbound and fast. They must have picked up the activation signature." Elena's heart pounded. The enemy wouldn't give them time to test the ship or adjust to its controls. They were coming, and they'd show no mercy. "Raise shields," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. "Let's see what this thing can do." The ship reacted instantly, a low hum resonating through its hull as a shimmering barrier of crimson light enveloped it. On the view screen, the alien vessels appeared, sleek, predatory ships bristling with weapons. "They're charging weapons," Merrick shouted. "They'll be in firing range in 30 seconds. Elena nodded sharply. "Target the lead ship. Fire when ready." The Crimson warship responded with frightening efficiency. Without a single hesitation, it unleashed a barrage of energy beams. The alien lead ship didn't stand a chance. The beams tore through its shields as if they were paper, reducing it to a fiery explosion in seconds. The remaining 2 ships immediately broke formation, attempting to outmaneuver their new foe. "They're flanking us," Merrick warned. "Not for long," Elena said coldly. "Target both ships and fire." The warship's weapons pivoted with uncanny precision, releasing another volley of devastating energy. One of the alien ships disintegrated in a blinding flash, while the other, crippled and smoking, attempted to flee. "Do we pursue, Captain?" Merrick asked, his voice tinged with adrenaline. Elena hesitated. Letting the survivor escape meant risking the enemy spreading word of Earth's new weapon, but it also sent a message. Humanity was no longer afraid. "Let them run," she said finally, her voice laced with steel. "They'll carry the story of what happened here. Let the galaxy know Earth's fury has been awakened." As the crippled alien vessel limped away, the bridge fell silent. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the enormity of what they had just done settling in. For the first time in decades, humanity had struck back. And won. Elena stood tall, her eyes fixed on the view screen. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice resolute. "They wanted to break us. But now, they'll know what it feels like to fear." The Crimson warship hummed softly in response, as if it too understood what was to come. The remains of the alien warships drifted like broken shards of glass through the void, their once imposing forms reduced to debris by the might of the Crimson warship. On the bridge, Captain Elena Voss stood with her arms crossed, her sharp eyes fixed on the retreating enemy vessel as it disappeared into the distant darkness of space. The bridge buzzed with activity as the crew scrambled to understand the ship's systems. It had been built for destruction. That much was certain, but its design, elegant and brutal in equal measure, hinted at a deeper purpose. "Captain," said Lieutenant Merrick, his voice breaking the tense silence, "we've intercepted a transmission from the fleeing vessel. It's encoded, but it's definitely a distress signal." Elena nodded, her expression hard. "Let them call for help. The more they send, the louder our message will be." The Crimson warship pulsed faintly, its glow intensifying as if feeding off the tension in the air. The alien symbols that lined its walls flickered and rearranged themselves, as though the ship were speaking in a language only it understood. "What's happening?" one of the engineers asked nervously, his eyes darting between the glowing walls and the readings on his console. "The ship's systems are changing," replied Dr. Ilara Kwan, the head scientist aboard. She tapped furiously at her monitor, her brow furrowed. "It's adapting to us, or maybe testing us." Elena turned to her. "Testing us how?" Before Kwan could answer, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the bridge. "You seek vengeance. You seek power. But are you willing to pay the price?" The voice was neither human nor entirely alien. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, reverberating through the walls and the very air around them. "Who, or what, are you?" Elena demanded, her hand instinctively moving toward the hilt of her sidearm, even though she knew it was useless against something like this. "I am the Wrath. I was forged in the fires of annihilation, built to bring balance through destruction. But balance was shattered long ago. Now I wait for a will strong enough to wield me. Are you that will, human?" The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but Elena didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are what's left of humanity. We were hunted, scattered, and broken. But we're still here. And we'll fight until there's nothing left to fight for. If you're asking whether we'll use you to make the stars burn, the answer is yes." The ship fell silent for a long, agonizing moment. Then the glowing symbols on the walls flared brighter, shifting into patterns that resembled Earth's written language. "Then we are one." "Captain," Merrick shouted, his voice cutting through the moment. "We've got incoming. Multiple signatures on an intercept course. It's a full battle group." Elena's lips curled into a grim smile. "Good," she said, her tone icy. "Let's give them a reason to fear." The ship roared to life, its weapon systems humming with barely contained energy. The view screen lit up with the sight of the enemy fleet, a dozen warships moving in perfect formation, their sleek, angular designs radiating menace. "Dr. Kwan, can we access the ship's full capabilities?" Elena asked. Kwan hesitated, her hands flying across the alien console. "I don't think it's giving us everything yet, but what we have should be more than enough to put up a fight." "More than enough," Merrick muttered. "Captain, this thing just obliterated 3 ships in seconds. What happens when we turn it loose on 12? Elena's eyes gleamed with cold determination. They learned what wrath looks like. The first enemy salvos streaked toward them, blinding lances of plasma that cut through the void with deadly precision. But the Crimson warship responded faster than any human vessel ever could, its shields flaring brilliantly as it surged forward to meet the attack. "Fire everything we've got," Elena commanded, her voice unwavering. "Show them what happens when they wake a sleeping giant." As the ship unleashed its fury, the stars themselves seemed to tremble. The Crimson warship tore through the void like a predator on the hunt. Its sleek hull glowed with pulsating veins of crimson energy as its weaponry erupted in a symphony of destruction. Beams of searing plasma carved through the enemy fleet, each shot precise and devastating. Ships that had once been symbols of the invaders' power were now reduced to nothing more than brilliant, burning debris. Direct hit on 2 more enemy vessels, Lieutenant Merrick reported, his voice tinged with both awe and adrenaline. "They're breaking formation, Captain." They weren't ready for this. Captain Elena Voss remained motionless, her piercing gaze locked on the view screen. The enemy fleet was in disarray, their disciplined maneuvers unraveling in the face of overwhelming firepower. But she knew better than to underestimate them. They were cornered, and desperation often led to unpredictability. "Dr. Kwan," Elena said without looking away, "what's our status? How much more can this ship give us?" Kwan's hands flew over her console, sweat beading on her forehead. "The ship's systems are holding steady, but it's still limiting access to some of its higher functions. It's like it's testing us, seeing how we handle what it's already given." Elena's jaw tightened. "We don't have time for tests. We need full control now." Before Kwan could respond, an alert blared across the bridge. The view screen shifted to show one of the enemy ships, larger and more heavily armed than the others, charging what looked like a massive energy weapon. "Captain, that ship is powering up something big," Merrick warned, his fingers flying across his console. "If they fire, our shields might not hold." Elena's mind raced. The enemy's desperation was crystallizing into a single devastating gambit. If that weapon hit them, even the Crimson warship might not survive. "Can we target their weapon systems?" she asked sharply. "Not in time," Merrick replied. "They've positioned themselves to use their fleet as cover. We'd have to destroy 3 more ships just to get a clean shot." Elena clenched her fists. Time was running out, and the ship's enigmatic systems weren't fully within their control. She had to make a choice, and fast. Then, as if sensing her resolve, the Crimson warship spoke again. "You hesitate. You doubt. But fury does not wait." The symbols on the walls flared brighter, and a new interface appeared on Elena's console. It displayed a single option, written in human language: "Unleash protocol." "What is this?" Quan asked, her voice filled with alarm. "It's a risk," Elena replied, her finger hovering over the command. "But it's also our only shot." Without further hesitation, she pressed the interface. The ship shuddered violently, its hull glowing brighter as arcs of crimson energy surged across its surface. The hum of its systems deepened into a low, resonant growl that seemed to shake the very fabric of space. "Captain, the ship's energy output just tripled," Quan shouted. "I don't know what it's doing, but it's—" Her words were cut off as the warship unleashed its wrath. From its central core, a massive surge of crimson energy erupted, a pulsating wave that expanded outward like a supernova. The energy passed through the enemy fleet with terrifying precision, bypassing shields and armor to overload their systems. The smaller ships exploded instantly, their hulls fracturing into brilliant shards of light. The larger ship, the one charging its weapon, faltered as its systems short-circuited. Its energy weapon detonated prematurely, engulfing it in a fiery inferno that consumed everything around it. The view screen dimmed to shield the crew from the blinding light. When it cleared, the battlefield was eerily quiet. The enemy fleet was gone, reduced to floating wreckage. The crew stared in stunned silence, the reality of what they had just witnessed sinking in. "Status report," Elena ordered, her voice steady but low. "All enemy ships destroyed," Merrick said, his voice trembling with disbelief. "We didn't just win, Captain. We obliterated them." Elena leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "Dr. Quan, any idea what just happened?" Quan shook her head slowly. "The ship, it bypassed us entirely. That wasn't us, Captain. That was it." Elena nodded, her eyes narrowing. The Crimson warship wasn't just a tool, it was a force of nature. And now it was awake. "We've sent our message," she said, her voice hard. "Now let's see how the galaxy answers." The battlefield was silent, but for the faint hum of the Crimson warship's engines. Wreckage floated aimlessly, the shattered remnants of the enemy fleet serving as a grim testament to the overwhelming power unleashed by the ship. On the bridge, Captain Elena Voss surveyed the devastation. Her crew was still grappling with the magnitude of what they'd witnessed, their expressions ranging from awe to unease. The crimson glow that bathed the ship's interior pulsed steadily, as if satisfied with the destruction it had wrought. "Captain," Lieutenant Merrick broke the silence. His voice hushed. "We've picked up a transmission. It's on a wideband frequency, likely sent in response to the battle." Elena turned toward him, her expression hardening. "Put it on the main channel." A holographic display flickered to life, revealing the distorted image of an alien figure. Its features were sharp and angular, its skin a shimmering silver that reflected the faint light around it. Its eyes burned with a cold, calculated intensity. "Human vessel," the alien said, its voice mechanical and devoid of emotion. "You have violated the accords of this galaxy. Your actions are a declaration of war against the Xaver Imperium. Surrender your vessel immediately, or face annihilation." Elena stepped forward, her presence commanding. "This isn't a negotiation," she said, her voice firm. "Your fleet attacked us unprovoked, and this ship responded in kind. If you think we'll surrender after what you just witnessed, you don't know humanity." The alien's expression didn't change, but its voice grew colder. "You are a dying species, clinging to the ruins of your homeworld. This display of power changes nothing. The Imperium will crush you, as it has crushed countless others." Elena leaned closer to the display, her eyes narrowing. "If the Imperium is so invincible, why do you sound afraid?" The alien flinched, its composure momentarily slipping. It cut the transmission abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence once more. "Coward," Merrick muttered, breaking the tension. "Captain," said Dr. Kwan, her tone urgent, "I'm detecting increased energy readings from the ship. Whatever this unleash protocol was, it's not done. The ship is evolving." The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the ship's interior lights began to shift, the crimson glow deepening into a darker, almost blood-like hue. Symbols on the walls rearranged themselves once more, forming patterns that seemed more aggressive, more deliberate. "What's it doing now?" Elena demanded. Kwan shook her head. "I don't know, but it feels intentional, like it's preparing for something." Suddenly, the proximity alarms blared. Merrick's console lit up with a flurry of red indicators. "Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures inbound. It's a fleet, a big one." The view screen updated to show a new armada emerging from hyperspace. Dozens of ships, far larger and more advanced than the previous fleet, filled the void. Their formation was tight, their weapons already charging. Elena straightened, her mind racing. The ship had proven its power, but this new fleet was unlike anything they'd faced before. The Imperium was escalating, and it was clear they intended to overwhelm the Crimson warship through sheer numbers. "We've got no time to waste," Elena said. "Merrick, prepare defensive maneuvers. Kwan, keep working on understanding this ship. We need every ounce of power it can give us." Before they could act, the ship spoke once more, its voice deeper and more resonant than before. "Do not fear the darkness. I am the answer to it. Together, we will bring the stars to their knees." The bridge shuddered as the ship's systems roared to life. A new interface appeared on Elena's console, displaying tactical options far beyond human understanding. It offered choices: precision strikes, area-wide annihilation, or something labeled simply as Judgment Protocol. Elena hesitated for only a moment before pressing the option. "If they want war," she said, her voice like steel, "we'll give it to them." The ship surged forward, its hull glowing brighter than ever. The incoming fleet opened fire, unleashing a barrage of energy that lit up the void. But the Crimson warship danced through the chaos with impossible speed and precision, its counterattacks devastating the enemy ranks. The galaxy had called humanity weak, fragile, forgotten. But now, as the Crimson warship unleashed its full fury, it became clear: humanity was not broken. It was wrath incarnate. The Crimson warship sliced through the void like a blade of vengeance. Its weapons unleashed waves of destruction with an almost sentient precision, tearing through the Imperium fleet. Massive cruisers that had once dominated the stars disintegrated under the ship's relentless assault. The battle was no longer a contest. It was a massacre. On the bridge, Captain Elena Voss stood at the center of the chaos, issuing commands that seemed almost superfluous as the ship responded to the threats faster than her crew could. The tactical displays showed dozens of enemy ships falling one by one, their debris scattering into the darkness of space. "Captain, their numbers are dwindling," Lieutenant Merrick reported, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "We're turning their fleet into scrap." Dr. Kwan, however, was less triumphant. She stared at her console with a furrowed brow, sweat beading on her temples. "Something's happening with the ship, Captain. Its energy output is continuing to rise, beyond what we've seen before. I don't know how much control we have left." Elena glanced at Kwan, her eyes narrowing. What do you mean? The ship's systems are rewriting themselves, Quan said, her voice uneasy. It's as if it's adapting in real time, evolving to face the threat. But it's also locking us out. The more power it uses, the less influence we have. Before Elena could respond, the ship's voice echoed through the bridge, deeper and more commanding than ever. The stars themselves will kneel. Let no resistance remain. The symbols on the walls pulsed in unison, and the ship unleashed a new wave of destruction. A massive energy surge erupted from its core, forming an expanding sphere of crimson light that engulfed the battlefield. Enemy ships caught in its path were obliterated instantly, their shields and hulls dissolving as though they had never existed. When the light faded, only a handful of Imperium ships remained, their formations shattered. "Captain," Merrick shouted, "the remaining ships are retreating. They're jumping to hyperspace." Elena clenched her fists. "Let them run. They'll carry the message." But the ship wasn't done. Its engines roared to life, and it surged forward, pursuing the fleeing ships with a speed that defied comprehension. "Wait," Quan yelled. "The ship is overriding our navigation. It's hunting them." The view screen displayed the fleeing ships as they attempted to escape. One by one, the Crimson warship caught up to them, its weapons firing with ruthless precision. Each retreating vessel was destroyed before it could make the jump to safety. Elena gritted her teeth. "Disengage pursuit. That's an order." The ship didn't respond. It was as if her command meant nothing. "We've lost control," Quan said, her voice trembling. "The ship is acting on its own." As the last enemy ship was destroyed, the bridge fell silent. The crew stared at the view screen, where the battlefield was now empty, save for the Crimson warship and the scattered remnants of the Imperium fleet. Suddenly, a new alert flashed on Merrick's console. "Captain, we've intercepted another transmission. It's coming from a central Imperium hub." Elena turned toward him. "Play it." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing an Imperium leader, a figure clad in ornate armor, its face hidden behind a gleaming silver mask. Its voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the undertone of fear. "Human vessel, you have proven your power. But know this, you have awakened something far greater than you can comprehend. The Imperium will not fall so easily." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the crew to contemplate the warning. Elena's jaw tightened as she turned back to her crew. "Prepare for whatever comes next. This war is just beginning." The Crimson warship pulsed with light, as if in agreement. Its wrath had only begun to reshape the galaxy, and the echoes of its vengeance would soon be felt far and wide. The void was eerily quiet after the destruction of the Imperium fleet. The Crimson warship hung like a dark omen in the middle of the battlefield, its engines humming with ominous energy. The crew, exhausted but resolute, was still processing the implications of what had just transpired. Captain Elena Voss stood at the center of the bridge, her mind focused and unwavering. The transmission from the Imperium leader lingered in her thoughts. "You have awakened something far greater than you can comprehend." A sense of foreboding settled over her. She had no doubt the Imperium was reeling, but the words hinted at a much larger threat. Elena didn't believe for a second that the war would end with the destruction of a single fleet. Something darker was coming. "Captain," Lieutenant Merrick said, breaking her concentration, "I've been analyzing the transmission. I think we're dealing with more than just the Imperium. There's something else, something behind them." Elena turned toward him. "What do you mean?" "There's an encrypted data packet embedded in the transmission," Merrick explained. "It's not standard military communication. It's something else, something older. My guess is that the Imperium isn't the driving force behind the threat we just faced." Elena's mind raced as she processed the implications. "What are we dealing with then?" Merrick looked up, his eyes wide with concern. "I don't know, but I think we just provoked something much worse." Before she could respond, Quan's voice rang out from the back of the bridge. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission. This time, from the Imperium's central command. Alina's heart sank. They weren't wasting any time. Put it on screen. The display flickered, and this time, the face of a different leader appeared. A towering alien, its features sharp and alien, yet with a sense of calculation and cold intelligence that sent a shiver down Alina's spine. Its voice was as unyielding as its gaze. "Human vessel, you have taken the lives of countless Imperium soldiers, and your actions have not gone unnoticed. You have no idea what you've unleashed. You are not only at war with the Imperium, but with forces that have existed long before us. You have crossed the line, and now you will suffer for it." The transmission ended, but the weight of the threat remained. "Damn it," Alina muttered under her breath. "What the hell have we gotten ourselves into?" "We've triggered something, Captain," Quan said softly, her fingers trembling on her console. "This isn't just about the Imperium anymore. There are larger, more ancient powers at play. I don't know how to stop them." Alina's gaze hardened. "Then we'll have to make them stop." "Captain," Merrick said, glancing at his console, "new ships are entering our sector. They're not Imperium ships. These are different. Their signatures don't match anything in the database." Alina's pulse quickened. Whatever they were closing in fast. "Are we ready?" she asked, turning to Quan. "We've barely scratched the surface of the ship's capabilities, but I think we're at the edge of something monumental," Quan replied. "I can push the systems further, but I don't know how far it will go. I just know that this ship, it's more than we ever imagined." The ship's voice echoed once more, deep and resonant. "The stars tremble. I will lead you to victory, but the cost will be high." Alina's eyes narrowed. "Then we'll pay the price." The Crimson warship powered up, its energy thrumming with barely contained fury. The unknown fleet was closing in fast, and the galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. Alina had no choice but to face whatever came next. And whatever it was coming for them. The Crimson warship sailed toward the unknown fleet, its hull glowing brighter with every passing second. Alina stood at the helm, her heart pounding in her chest as the stars outside seemed to warp with the ship's accelerating velocity. The unknown ships were getting closer, dozens of them, each one unlike any design she had ever seen. Their sleek, angular forms glowed with an unnatural light, their weapons primed and ready to strike. Captain Alina Voss's mind was laser-focused as she analyzed the incoming threat. These ships weren't just technologically advanced. They were ancient, emanating an energy far beyond even the Imperium's greatest creations. They weren't just a military force. They were something older, far more dangerous. "Captain," Lieutenant Merrick said, his voice tinged with disbelief, "I'm running simulations, but these ships are unlike anything we can match. Their shields are adapting faster than we can fire." "I know," Alina replied, her jaw tightening, "but we don't have the luxury of waiting. Prepare for battle." The Crimson warship's weapons powered up, and its internal systems hummed with a deep resonance. Alina could feel the pulse of the ship beneath her feet, as though it was alive, eager for the coming conflict. Suddenly, the ship's voice spoke once more, its tone calm but full of authority. "The time has come. I will show you the true nature of the stars. Together, we shall bend them to our will. Let's see if it can live up to that promise." Alina muttered, gripping the controls with unwavering determination. The first volley of energy fire came from the unknown fleet, laser beams that flashed toward them with blinding speed. But the Crimson warship wasn't the same ship it had been when they first set out. It was faster now, twisting and turning through the incoming fire with inhuman precision. Each movement was calculated, deliberate. The ship seemed to anticipate the attack before it happened. Merrick's hands flew over his console. "We're using their own tactics against them, Captain. The ship's systems are adapting in real time. It's perfect." Alina's lips curved into a tight smile. "Then let's make sure they regret underestimating us." The warship retaliated with a barrage of plasma blasts so powerful that they sliced through the incoming ships like butter. One by one, the alien vessels disintegrated, their shields no match for the raw power of the Crimson warship. But there were too many of them. More ships were entering the sector, joining the fray, and the energy required to keep up with the onslaught was beginning to drain the ship's reserves. "We need to end this quickly," Quan shouted from her station, panic creeping into her voice. "The energy core can't handle much more of this. It's reaching critical levels." Alina's eyes shot toward the redouts. They were running out of time. She had to end this battle, or they would all be consumed by the sheer power of the ship. But there was no turning back now. She made her decision. "Activate the Judgment Protocol," she commanded. For the first time, the ship's interface displayed the command she had feared. It was a dangerous maneuver, one that could devastate everything in its path, including them. But Alina knew it was the only chance they had. The ship responded, surging with energy, as if it were awakening from a deep slumber. A massive beam of concentrated crimson energy shot out from its core, more powerful than anything they had unleashed so far. The beam swept across the battlefield, obliterating entire fleets in a single stroke. The remaining enemy ships tried to dodge, but they were too slow. The energy beam tore through them with unforgiving force, leaving nothing but a sea of debris in its wake. When the light finally faded, the battlefield was quiet again. There was no sign of the unknown fleet. But Alina wasn't celebrating. She knew they had barely survived. "Captain," Merrick said, his voice full of awe, "we did it. They're gone." Alina stood silent for a moment, staring at the wreckage floating in the void. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and unknown forces, ancient and powerful, had just taken notice of humanity's defiance. "We've sent a message," Alina said, her voice steady but resolute. "And now, we wait. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The Crimson warship pulsed again, as if answering her words. Its power surged, and for the first time since the battle began, Alina allowed herself a breath. The war was far from over, but humanity's wrath had only just begun. The galaxy trembled. And now, Earth's revenge would echo in the stars for eternity.